All right, guys. I usually have stuff on catch up, but this time I have quite a bit. But I'm going to zip right through things. We're going to talk more about the Tigers as we go. But I did get a chance to go watch a couple Tiger games last week. We had talked about it previously on the podcast, and you know how I talked about going to concerts. My wife and I, in our retirement, while we still are, let's call it spry, as Casey would say, are able to go and do things. You know, we found out that it's just awesome to go to a night game, spend the night down at like Greektown or wherever in downtown Detroit, and then come back for the afternoon game the next day. And that's what we did. And that afternoon game we saw was a classic Tiger win, 4-3. Come back after being down 3-0. The excitement level, the electricity at Comerica Park. I haven't seen that in a long time, boys. It was incredible.
We haven't seen Comerica look like that in probably about 10 years. Maybe when Miggy was going for number 3,000 or, a couple other little milestones here and there, Comerica was filled out. But yeah, we'll talk more about the Tigers, later in the podcast. But I saw they finished the season with 3 straight sellouts in that White Sox series. So, I mean, it's just awesome to see. We've talked about it before. Detroit's a baseball town, just waiting for the Tigers to get back into contention. So it was cool. I'm glad you decided. I know you were always going down for that Thursday game, but I was glad to see that you decided to, let's turn it into a day-night, or I guess a night-day.
Yeah, little mini vacation, what it ended up being, and then go ahead, Jared.
Then you can keep going. My favorite part of your weekend or your couple days down at the ballpark is the custom 3-Point Podcast jerseys you wore. That was like something you wear, like if you're in college, you wear that to a darty, and you play beer pong in it. I like how you had the night game edition and the day game edition. The night game edition was all black. Is that right? And then the day game was white, or how am I remembering?
Yeah, no, I have a blue and white one, and then I also have an orange and black one. And it may look a little geeky to people thinking, "What's this old man doing?" But I love it, man. It was fine, And
if I'm going to go down, or what's on the back?
Number 3
for the 3-Point Podcast.
Amen. And that's Alan classic. Trammell. What the hell?
and Alan Trammell. And you never know if someone says, "Hey, what 3-Point Podcast? What is that?" And then there you go, conversation starter right there. I mean, I'm going to ask, not to put you on the spot, Ted.
Oh no,
not trying to show your age or anything.
Yeah.
So Jared just threw out a term that honestly I just learned. I just learned probably like last week. Darty. Do you know what that is?
What, really?
What is it? What's the term?
Darty.
DARTY.
Yeah. Well, once you find out what it is, it's going to be like, oh yeah, but
I have no idea.
Day party.
Oh, okay.
So you always hear about people saying like do some day drinking. You hop out on the pontoon in the afternoon. You're throwing a darty. Yeah, I mean, we just used to say a day party or day drinking or whatever. But I heard some kid at work the other day use the term darty, and I was like, "Is that short for day party?" And he was like, "Yeah." Gave me the look like what you just did, Jared. And I was like,
I'd say, okay. Man, that's your first Uncle Ted moment of the That's a bit concerning. I feel like that's been a phrase for a few years now. I would have thought you used that all the time, to be honest. If I had to guess, but kudos to you for being willing to admit that. That's a bit glaring.
I had that moment at work when that kid gave me the same look that you just did. I was like, oh boy, here we go. It's all downhill from here.
Well, also I had a wedding on Saturday night, again back down in Detroit, actually Dearborn area. Well, actually the wedding was in downtown Detroit. The reception was in Dearborn. I had a weird experience, fellas. Two weird experiences. I have a really nice pair of dress shoes that I've had for probably 15 years, right? Hardly ever wear them. And I brought them out for the wedding. My wife actually polished them up for me. We go to the wedding. And let me take my word for this. These were not cheap shoes. So we go to the wedding where we leave the church and walk out to my car, and I look down. I thought, oh, my shoes untied. And then I look on second look, the whole bottom of the soles were just completely obliterated. It just completely fell apart.
Well,
I've never seen anything like it in my life. And they were kind of like a hard rubber. So apparently they got some dry rot somewhere along the line.
Are the shoes leather though? I assume they're probably leather dress shoes.
Shoes are leather. Yeah.
Maybe, if you're not wearing them that much, if you're not seasoning, if you're not like putting the oils and stuff on them, like what you would do to a baseball glove, basically.
Exactly.
You know, that can happen. That's what they always say about shoes. Like, you know, people that collect shoes or sneakerheads or whatever with their Jordans.
Sure.
If you don't wear them, they will fall apart. Like, shoes are meant to be worn, and they could fall apart. So maybe that's what happened.
First-hand experience, though. I've never seen anything like it. I'll share a photo with you guys.
How long were your shoes flopping around, do you think, before you realized that the bottoms were out?
Well, walking on my way out of the church, probably. And once I got to the hotel afterwards, I'm walking to my room because I was going to go to the Target and buy a new pair of shoes before the reception. And I mean, there was black rubber all up and down the hallway going to my room. So, but that wasn't the main story. I know I'm dragging this on, fellas, but I had a Jared moment. Okay. So I went to the Target to buy new shoes, right? I parked in the parking lot. I actually had my wife's car, which is a white Equinox. So I come out, you know, and I hit my buzzer to unlock my car, and I just offhandedly just go and open up the door. I scared the crap out of this old lady who was sitting in the driver's seat.
Didn't you, quote unquote, say to me last week, you got to pay more attention to your surroundings or something along those lines? Basically, you trying to lecture me?
And then I get burned. I mean, think about it. Jeez. It happens. It happens, apparently.
And yours is even worse because you had the key fob and everything. It's like, man, your alarm should have probably went off in your brain as soon as you hit that and you didn't see the lights turn on or anything.
I know. Yeah, that's what we call a senior moment with me, Jared. That's
what was your explanation to the lady? I'm curious what the conversation was. Was it just I'm sorry, and then you hopped out?
There was no conversation. It was, I just go, sorry, and shut the door and went back to my car right next to it.
You're at a Target. You know, everybody's kind of a jerk down here is kind of how I describe it. But, you know, what's funny is like everybody says the Midwest values. The Midwest values, I feel them in our hometown. I don't feel them necessarily here in Detroit. You probably walked up to that door and that lady probably shot you a stare of anger. Am I wrong?
She kind of did. No, she kind of did. And a stare of terror.
Right. Who is this guy?
No kidding.
Again, okay, so she's an adult, elderly, you know, whatever. That's fine. But I guess, you know, sometimes I'll run into a store and my wife might stay in the car if I'm just running in grabbing something quick. Right. But I don't anymore. Like you never know. Like, again, what if you were some crazy person and the door was just unlocked? Yeah. You know, yes, you pushed yours, but that wouldn't have unlocked her car. So why are people sitting in the parking lot with their doors unlocked? I mean,
I do the same thing with my wife, and it's always locked. You know, if I get out and leave her in the car.
Right. My wife would do it on her own, but I always say, lock the doors right when I get out. I don't care if I'm just running into a gas station real quick and out. Like, no, lock those doors. So that's the other part of it.
No doubt.
Midwest values like you're talking about, Jared, but lock your doors. What are you doing?
How about you guys? Anything of note since we last talked?
Not much. Just staying busy. Football season, work, school. Well, the big news down here is the hurricane that blew through. I don't know if we're going to talk about that much, but luckily here in Charlotte, I mean, we got a ton of rain. I mean, actually quite a bit of rain and wind, and there's a lot of like tree damage and stuff like that. But we lost power for a few hours on Friday, but nothing at all like up in the mountains in North Carolina. Some of those towns up in the mountains, I mean, literally Asheville, Boone, where App State is, some of the other mountain towns up there, they're destroyed. I mean, they got wiped away, and their Asheville is, I mean, almost completely destroyed. It's cut off from the world right now is how they're describing it, because the highways have either been washed away or they're flooded with water. So there's no way to get emergency personnel there except by helicopter. And some of these towns are like, I literally don't know how they're going to rebuild them because it's just, they're destroyed. So it's crazy.
I honestly didn't even realize that it was hitting the East Coast like that. I thought it was just like a Florida issue, to be honest. Yeah, it's terrible. It was kind of interesting. So the Tigers are playing the Rays, and Tampa. They, you know, a lot of times, these games are produced basically back at the hometown of that team. Like whenever we have a game in Seattle, you know, a big bulk of our production is done in Detroit. You know, remoting into these roles. Right. So they couldn't do that in Tampa Bay. So I was texting Ted. I was like, I got sprung into action. Had to work the Tampa Bay show for that amazing Matt Vierling slide that, you know, was the second to last win of the season for the Tigers. It was kind of interesting watching that game from the Tampa Bay Rays perspective, where their season is over. Like they didn't give a shit about that game. So it was just kind of funny. But no, I'm with you. It's scary. I'm thankful that I don't live in an area where I have to deal with that. Did you get affected much where you're at, Matt, or it's just the areas around you?
I mean, like I said, here in Charlotte, we're like so far inland and not necessarily like up in the mountains. We got a ton of rain, and basically the whole city was shut down on Friday. Like no school, and a bunch of other stores were shut. I went, was it Saturday morning or I think it was Friday morning because my daughter didn't have school. We live like right in the city, like right by everything, and so I just ran to the grocery store quick to just grab a few things, and it was crazy. It was like an apocalyptic feel or something because like the power was out everywhere, but like they had a generator, so like just their like security lights were on and like one register working, but they're like rushing around trying to cover the produce up and like trying to save some of the food. I just grabbed like a few things, and it's always like the reminder of like people don't understand basic rules of the road. Like when traffic lights are out, what people don't know what to do. It's like traffic lights are out, it turns into a 4-way stop. Like everyone stop. It shouldn't be that hard. Everyone stop. But then like I'm stopped and there's people shoot through the intersection. I'm like, this is more dangerous than the storm driving through these intersections. So no, thankfully that was kind of the worst of it for us. Because up there in the mountains, it's going to be quite the rebuild. And I know, down in Florida and stuff too. So.
Yeah, that's a massive hurricane without a doubt, and a lot of lost lives, and it's sad. And where you're located, even though you had to deal with what you did have to deal with, it seems like Charlotte there kind of skirts a lot of the real bad weather that seems to come through. So that's good for you guys. Yeah. We should remind everybody, this is episode 329 of the 3 Point Podcast, presented by Memorial Healthcare's Wellness Center. For those unexpected moments when injuries strike, check out that orthopedic walk-in clinic Monday through Fridays, 8 to noon. Our other starting lineup of partners include ALS of Michigan, AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori Shook & Associates Real Estate Services. By the way, Kori voted the Realtor of the Year by East Central Association of Realtors. So congratulations to Kori there and that whole crew. She's got a nice little business going for sure. Also, we want to thank Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. By the way, I didn't know if I told you guys when I was down there Thursday's game, went out to breakfast with my wife. We went to a place called the Dime Store. We got recommended. Really, really good. I'm walking out. Somebody tapping on the window. It was Woody and a couple buddies. They were down there too. So you never know who you're going to run into, man.
You never know. Was he trying to sell some mortgage insurance or something like that?
No, he was there. Pure pleasure going to the Tiger game. That's nice. What it was all about. And I also want to thank the folks at Shiawassee County Fair. They have their trunk and treat coming up on October 11th through the 13th. All right, that takes care of our business. I'll set the stage. We're going to have Teddy Rydquist of the Argus Press joining us for the Prep Spotlight right after this. Well, it's time for the Prep Spotlight, and again, we're going to have a special guest from the Argus Press, Teddy Rydquist. He's their sports guy and does a great job covering area sports, football, and all the other fall sports, and then winter and spring. But Teddy, welcome to the podcast again. Let's start right into the Corunna game, because they were down 19-0 to Lake Fenton and then roared back with 41 unanswered. I think you were at that game.
Yep.
But just some of your thoughts on, Corunna, homecoming, all that goes along with it, falling behind early and then coming back.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The first quarter and a half of that game and then the final 2.5 couldn't have been any different. Corunna struggled to do anything, fell behind 19-0, then ripped off 41 unanswered to end the game. And, the homecoming's an interesting point. That's the first thing that, Coach Steve Herrick said in his post game, that homecoming can be a little tricky for, keeping the team's focus sometimes. Right. And he thinks that played a role in the first quarter and a half. And then, Bryce Eddington, I thought, played a huge role in Corunna's comeback there, receiving, a little bit of rushing, and then he had a big interception too. So Bryce Eddington played a big role in that, I thought.
Yeah, homecoming is, it's always a little bit of a distraction. You're thinking about the dance and you're thinking about everything else going on. If some of the players are, on the court or anything like that, right, that can always be some sort of a distraction. So that, and Corunna's got a big one this Friday against Goodrich. So not that they were looking past Lake Fenton, but they might have been thinking, all right, pick up this dub, and then we're on to Goodrich for the matchup with the Martians. So that's a big one, obviously. I assume you're going to be looking at that one. coming up, Chesaning, Ovid Elsie, and there's
Yep.
a bunch of other big games in the area coming up in these next few weeks. What are some of the games that you're kind of already not even just penciling in? You got it. I mean, you're going to these games. What are some other big games that you're kind of looking forward to?
You're right. Circle them in pen, not pencil. Yeah.
Right.
I like, for sure, this Corunna Goodrich game at Goodrich. Yep. This is going to be a huge game. Corunna 5-0, Goodrich 4-1. And then, you kind of touched on it there, October 11th. So not this coming up Friday, but the one after, that Chesaning at Ovid Elsie game. That's most likely going to decide the MMAC, the Mid-Michigan Activities Conference. So These next 2 weeks, those are the two games that I'm really looking forward to.
One of the teams that's maybe a little bit of a down year this year, New Lothrop. The big storyline with them is keeping their playoff streak alive. How do you see it going down the stretch with them? I know they've got a couple tough matchups still remaining. I think Montrose, I think Ubley, even. Right. How do you see their season panning out down the stretch?
Yep, you're right about the streak. Made it every year since 2000, 24 years in a row, I believe.
Crazy.
And it is. That's unbelievable. And I hope I'm wrong, but we were kind of talking about this at work the other night. It's looking like that streak is probably going to come to an end this year. I mean, just given how tough we know the MMAC is, and that but the positive thing for New Lothrop is that they're playing a freshman quarterback now, Carson Agnew. He's looked really good at times. So it's probably just going to be a 1-year speed bump if they do indeed end up missing the playoffs, and the future is looking pretty bright for them.
Yeah, they're always reloading. That's a situation with Coach Galvis over there. 24 straight years playoffs. That's a pretty incredible streak. So Absolutely. If this is the 1 year they don't make it, they're going to be motivated to get back in the playoffs.
For sure.
I was going to ask, so we were talking before we started recording, I'm sure Ted and Jared have other football questions, but I always think it's crazy this time of year, really, in any season. Spring is very busy too, even the winter. But how do you manage? Luckily, the football games are, for the most part, always on Friday, unless you're covering JV. How do you manage your schedule? You got cross country, you got soccer, you got other sports. Like, how do you kind of manage that schedule over there at the Argus?
You're right. And I'm thankful that I have, Matthew and John, a couple of coworkers that help a little bit. But the big thing, we know football on Friday. So Friday's kind of blocked off entirely for football. And then, on the, Monday through Thursday, I like to try to hit the other sports. Soccer's a big one here in the fall, boys soccer. And, we talked about cross country a little bit, and then volleyball too. So I try to hit those ones Monday through Thursday, because we know football, it's all football on Fridays.
Yeah.
I know there's challenges, obviously, being basically a one-man sports department. What is the biggest challenge, and how irritated do you get when you don't get a coach that calls in their scores?
Yep, you're right. That is probably the biggest challenge, is sometimes getting, results, or even like at the beginning of a season, getting your hands on a roster. But, just the persistence is key. And eventually, I've been very fortunate that all these coaches in this area, I haven't really had any bad encounters with any of them. And the ADs have been great too. So they help me out a lot.
I asked Tyler last week on our podcast the idea of maybe shrinking football divisions from 8 down to maybe 6. I'm going to ask maybe a few more people as we keep going along these prep spotlight interviews throughout the rest of the year. That same question. What do you think? Are you okay with the amount of divisions we have? Would you shrink it? Would you maybe even expand them? What do you think?
That's a very interesting question. I'd like to see if we went to 6, maybe try it for put it in as a 1 or 2 year trial run and see how it goes. And then, that gives us the ability to say, hey, we can go back to 8 if we don't like it, or if we do like it, we can stick with this. So that's an interesting idea. And I think something that they should try. Yeah.
It would definitely make covering the playoffs a little different. It might change how many teams you might have to cover more. Who knows? But
Who knows,
it would change your coverage come November of the football playoffs. So speaking of the playoffs, obviously Corunna, especially we talked about it a lot on this podcast, Ovid Elsie, some other teams made some deep runs last year.
Yep.
If you had to take your press hat off, your Argus press hat off, and just as a fan, you've been covering these first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, what team do you see making a run? Do you think that this is Ovid Elsie's year? Do you think this is Chesaning's year? Can Corunna do it again, kind of get things rolling towards the end of the season? What team are you seeing that might make it to Ford Field?
The two teams I like a lot is Corunna again, and then I like Ovid Elsie too. Corunna, there was obviously, questions coming in, replacing, the best quarterback and wide receiver they've ever had, but the couple of games I've been at, they've certainly passed the eye test to me. So Corunna's another big one. And then, the reason I went with Ovid Elsie over Chesaning is I'm just a big believer in Trice Tokar, that senior quarterback over at Ovid Elsie. He's the real deal. And, they came so close last year, and I think they could get it done this year.
One last question from me, Teddy. You mentioned Bryce Eddington. You just mentioned Trice Tokar. I think about last year in our area, the top players were the Bauer twins and Eddington pretty unanimously. Yep. I think we're a little bit more spread out this year, and each team has a couple pretty decent players. Who's been some of the guys that have really stood out to you outside of maybe Trice Tokar and Bryce Eddington this year?
Yeah, I've liked Odo Wilkerson a lot at Corunna. He's had some big games. And then another guy that's, just a perfect high school running back over at Chesaning's, Braden Florian. He's, rarely does it take one defender to bring him down. It's usually 2 or 3. I mean, he's just ripping off 6, 7, 8 yards per carry. Florian ran for 2,000 yards last year and probably going to do it again this year. So he's a player I really like a lot too.
Two questions for you. One here, high school related. Some of the other fall sports, what should we be looking out for? Any other storylines other than football that we're always big time into?
Yeah, got an interesting storyline in cross country. And you're right, football deservedly so dominates the fall. But in cross country, on the boys' side, Corunna is looking like they're very likely going to win the Flint Metro League Stars Division title. They're using stars and stripes in cross country this year, and that'll be the first time that Corunna's won it since they joined the league in 2019. So congratulations to Corunna on that. And it's, hope they seal the deal. And then on the flip side, the Owasso girls are second in the stars. This is, the 4th straight year Owasso's been really good. So a little shout out to the Owasso girls cross country team too.
Yeah,
nice.
Absolutely. We'll end it here, this portion anyway. It's not really prep related, but we're all just completely geeked about the Detroit Tigers. Some of your thoughts on the Tigers run here late in the season to the playoffs?
Yeah, isn't that awesome? I mean, I remember I saw something on Twitter here that on August 10th or whatever, their playoff odds were right around 1% or something.
Yeah, 0.9.
It was crazy. And, it's awesome that they're doing it with this young core of, Trey Sweeney and Dylan Dingler and Parker Meadows, especially because he struggled early and then he came back up and has been one of their best players. So it's really exciting that they're doing it with such a young core, and that's really promising for the future too. And how about Scooble winning the Triple Crown and almost certainly the Cy Young? Yeah,
no doubt. Yeah, well, it's going to be fun to watch. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Tigers in this podcast, but just wanted to get your thoughts since you're here with us. While we wrap this up, Teddy, tell our listeners best spot to follow your stuff.
Yep, the best spot to follow my stuff is on, the X, formerly Twitter, at Teddy Rydquist 88. Yep, I mean, big on Friday nights, tweeting out football scores at the end of every quarter and everything. But then throughout the week, too, I'll put cross country and soccer and all the other stuff on there, too. So that's definitely the best spot to follow me.
At that, and like us boomers, pick up a newspaper, the actual physical newspaper, right?
That's right. Every day, still a daily newspaper. We got that, too.
All right. Teddy Rydquist here joining us. We appreciate the time, Teddy, and we'll catch up with you again down the road. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate you guys having me. Sounds good.
Jacobs Insurance Agency has served Shiawassee County and the surrounding areas since 1977. Just like 3 Point Podcast, we've had 3 generations: Gary Jacobs Sr., Gary Jacobs II, Brian Jacobs, and myself, Noah Jacobs, serving our community with offices in Waterford and Owasso on M21, just west of Home Depot. Stop in or go online to jacobsinsurance.com to get a quote or get your questions answered by our team. Jacobs Insurance is a proud supporter of our local schools and the proud sponsor of the Prep Spotlight. Insure everything, local, independent, and trusted. It's our family working together to protect yours. That's the Jacobs way.
All right. Well, we did talk about it a little bit with Teddy. Always good to have him on. But Corunna, number 3 in D5, improved to 5-0. Downing Lake Fenton 41-19, as we talked about, down 19-0, 41 unanswered. We talked about Bryce Eddington. He had a great game, 8 catches, 114 yards, interception, just seemed to light a fire under the team about midway through that second quarter. But Caden Cowdery, the quarterback, no slouch either, 259 yards passing, a couple touchdowns, was 12-19, finished also with 103 yards rushing. Not a bad combo right there. Cowdery had maybe his best game.
I've been listening to you guys mostly on the radio, so I'm here. You guys paint the picture. Yep. Seems like Cowdery has been almost kind of an unsung hero of this one. I mean, we talk about quarterback play all the time. It's so easy to lose games for your team. But from what I'm reading from the stat lines and from what I saw game number 1, which I watched in its entirety versus Fowlerville, I've been impressed with his decision making. Doesn't really make the big mistakes, it seems like, and does it both with his legs and his arm. So
yeah,
he's impressive. Is that fair to say?
That's very fair to say. And he's coming right into his own now, midway through his senior season, kind of starting off the season in the shadow, maybe a little bit of Wyatt Bauer, but now it's his team. And he really had a nice game and had some good answers against Lake Fenton the other night. And one of his favorite targets, their big play guy, we were calling for it. Isaac Jacobs, only 2 catches, but 95 yards. And he's really a breakaway threat anytime he touches the ball.
That's always the cool stat lines. You always see the picture. There's like a classic one from Randy Moss. It had like 3 catches for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns or something crazy like that. If you see those high school stat lines of 2 catches, 95 yards, it's just, he's getting the ball and just taking off.
Absolutely.
Like Jamison Williams is how I see
very,
it.
very good analogy there for sure. And they have Goodrich on the road in the Martian Stadium on Friday night. And just a side note, apparently the Goodrich people don't like us too much over there as they blocked us here, right?
Yeah, it's funny. The actual Goodrich football Twitter account has us blocked for some reason. Maybe this has
something I did. It's probably something I did. I don't even remember it. Probably something I said. Because I thought about that when you sent that, and I'm like, okay, so Corunna beat them by 50 last year,
right?
A lot.
So who knows what was said after that one? And then I remember 2-3 years ago at Ford Field. It was almost like Michigan football personified, where it was like they were losing to a Grand Rapids Catholic school, and it was like they were just like almost sitting on the ball, like accepting that they were going to lose. So I'll raise my hand. It's probably something I said, and maybe what I just re-sparked probably pisses them off even more. So hopefully Corunna maybe can get that dub for our sakes this week. But we'll see.
It was either you throwing out some sort of hot take, or maybe just our Corunna coverage in general.
Yeah,
they were just sick
probably.
over it. But they did. So they do have like. I don't know if it was a coach. I kind of retweeted or I shared a couple things, interacted with a couple Goodrich accounts after last Friday, like saying, hey, big matchup coming up this Friday with Corunna, stuff like that. And like a fan account. And then I think he's like a coach or a parent of a player started following us. So it's not the whole Goodrich community. It's just whoever runs their actual official football account.
We're
not a fan of 3 Point Podcast.
We're rat poison, as they say. So they
That's right.
Get it out of their feed. Like you said, I mean, man, we did talk a lot about Corunna last year. That probably.
Oh yeah.
Think about that. You're a coach. You just lost 50-0. You get on Twitter thinking, "My God, finally I can get away from it." This random 3 Point Podcast is just feeding you Corunna.
Keeps bombarding my social media.
I like to imagine that was like a Sunday, maybe after their season ended. They are like, "Why am I still seeing this goddamn shit?" I'm blocking them.
Block.
I think that's what happened.
We got a few other things to get into. Ovid Elsie, as we talked about, led by Trice Tokar, 6 of 10, 133 yards, 3 touchdowns in the first half alone as they down Montrose 42-7. That's an impressive win right there, for sure. Goodrich, no problem with Owasso, 48-6. Chesaning squeaked out one over Birch Run. Maybe looking a little ahead, 17-9 over Birch Run. Max Volk, the quarterback, ran for both touchdowns for the Indians. 1 week to go. Both Ovid Elsie and Chesaning going to be highly ranked in the top 5 if they both can pick up wins this week, and they'll face each other on the 11th. So that'll be a fun one. A couple other quickies in cross country. Teddy mentioned it a little bit. Corunna first at the Flint Metro League Jamboree. Bobby Donnelly, Peyton Chandler, Jackson Stroud, and Urza Nellis all finished in the top 10. And in volleyball, Corunna swept Owasso. Mackenzie LeCure had 15 kills and 4 assists. So
busy time.
Yeah, big time.
I was gonna throw something out. Yeah, I was gonna throw something out there. So Perry, I have some connections over there. They're having a tough season. They're winless on the year right now. We know former Corunna Cavalier Steve Bentley is their head coach over there, and my nephews are playing. My nephew Eli's a sophomore. He kind of dinged up his knee, so he's been hurt for a couple of weeks, but I think he's coming back soon. Nephew Brady, who's a senior though, is having an awesome senior year, even on tough season for the team overall right now. But it's their homecoming this week. He's on the court, so he's up to be homecoming king. And I'm not sure how they do it at Perry, if it's like they choose a king and a queen. I'm not sure on all those details, but he's up for that, and he's top 10 in the state in tackles.
I saw that.
Yeah, my family's kind of keeping me up to date, and I kind of message him a little bit too. he's not big on the stats right now. I think he's trying to just stay focused on the season. But
yes,
I think according to Max Preps, he's like number 6. But go ahead, Jared.
Seems like he's like the security blanket on that defense. He's a safety set, almost kind of like a rover position. It's always nice to have a guy like that who, in open field, can make some tackles to save from a few touchdowns. That's usually where that role comes in.
But it also doesn't bode very well for wins when your defensive backs leading it in tackles. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. He could be saving a few more tackles, so it could be a couple other bigger blowouts. But still, it is cool to see Brady Burns up there at the top of the list in tackles in the state.
And I don't know. I don't want to put you on spot, man. I don't know what their schedule looks like the rest of the year. But is there that game where they're kind of circling, like, hey, we got to get a dub. Let's go. Like, this is our game to get it, almost.
Honestly, it might be this week. They play Dansville for homecoming. So maybe this is the game, homecoming. Let's go. Probably a big crowd there in Perry, for homecoming. Dansville not very good either. So maybe this is the one. It's like this is the one, because then pretty sure next week they have Pewamo, Westphalia. So that probably will not go well. But yeah, this is the one. Homecoming, Dansville, get the win.
Go Ramblers, man. That's for sure. And that CMAC is a tough league. There's not a lot of breathers in that league for sure. No. All right. Well, this has been the Prep Spotlight presented by Jacobs Insurance Agency. And we'll be back and talk a bunch of other sports, including our Detroit Tigers, right after this. All right. You heard in the open that the Shiawassee County Fair is much more than a fair. Come join them October 11th through 13th at the Shiawassee County Fairgrounds. It's their very first trunk and treat camp out. All kinds of activities for all ages. They'll have a bonfire, s'more roast, haunted hay rides for children, haunted rides for adults, a bounce house, a costume contest, just all kinds of stuff. And I believe they probably still have camping available. There's nothing like fall camping. And if you can get to the fairgrounds and if they still have it available, go on, check it out. You never know. It's iffy sometimes on weather, but if it's a decent autumn summer or Indian summer, using a non-PC term, nothing like it. So head out to the fairgrounds.
Yeah, there really isn't. And I'm with you. I mean, nice little bonfire in the fall time. And this seems like almost like, I don't remember in years, maybe it has, the fair has really been becoming a lot more than just one weekend in August, as we know. The fall activities, maybe even a haunted house, maybe somewhere down the road in the fairgrounds future. That seems like a great missed opportunity that they've had in the past that now they're kind of starting to hone in on. It sounds like an awesome thing, the trunk or treat event.
Yeah, I was going to say they have the facilities there. They could do a pretty cool haunted house. It sounds like they have the haunted trail rides and stuff like that. Ted, do you remember? I remember going to a haunted house at McCurdy Park.
I went.
Building. Yeah. Okay. So that was even around when you were a kid. Okay. Yeah. So
McCurdy's Revenge is what.
Yeah, that's right. McCurdy's Revenge. Revenge. That would be a good idea, because I know they use the commercial buildings out there for storage in the wintertime, but they don't usually start putting stuff in there until late October. And this event's October 11th. So that's not a bad idea to think about down the road. All right. Well, let's jump into some sports, boys. And let's get deep, first of all, into baseball and our Detroit Tigers. I mean, it's been an incredible end of the season. It kind of is reminiscent in a different way to the 84 team that went 35-5 to start the season. This year's Tigers, the roar of 24, as we like to say, finished the season almost the same kind of record. Right. It's just been an incredible turnaround by the youngest team in baseball.
Youngest team in baseball, and almost virtually zero playoff experience on this team. I mean, only one player with actual playoff experience. So, I mean, obviously their manager, AJ Hinch, has a ton of experience in the playoffs. So that's a big deal. But no, I mean, it just goes to show it's all about getting hot. And yet some people complain. I've probably been one to complain about how long the baseball season is. 162 games just seems absolutely out of control. But that's why it's a long season. Tigers were out of it. I mean, by July, they were done. They were cooked. Injuries. They're sending guys up and down from Toledo to Detroit. And then all of a sudden you just get hot. Did it have to do with, whatever happened with Javi Baez? Who knows?
Part of it.
But right. That had to be part of it. Skubal's been good all year, but Fetter and Hinch have been working that starting rotation like gold. Some bats got hot. Carpenter and Riley Green's been good all year. Torkelson actually, has been improved since his last stint in AAA. So no, they got hot, and they finished really good, and they get the Houston Astros and AJ Hinch's former team. We're probably going to see Justin Verlander on the mound. So, I mean, it's storylines galore for the Tigers heading into the playoffs. But even though the Tigers snuck in, I bet the Astros, they're not thinking that this is going to be an easy series, just because
I think they're only a couple games better, 2 or 3 games on the overall season.
Even though the Astros still have all those dudes from those World Series teams, and the Tigers have basically no playoff experience, I would be curious to see if there's a line, if the Tigers might actually be favored going into this.
I saw a great post from Jim Casa 97.1. Basically, he said, so it's a 3-game series. All 3 games we played in Houston. Right. The winner of game 1 of these series since 2020 has won 87% of these series if you win game 1. And whoever won game 1 every single series last year in the playoffs won those series. And so the Tigers, you have Tarik Skubal, best pitcher in baseball, on the mound for game 1. You take your chances. Yeah, it almost is a do or die playoff game. Number 1, the Tigers, I would say, have to win that game. Astros have to win that game. So it's gonna be really fun to see how that plays out. But what a fun season it's been. I mean, AJ Hinch, I sing his praises every week, even when they were down. I love that guy. I think he is. I used to always say, and I probably said it on this podcast before 3-4 years ago. I was like, what the hell does a manager even do for a baseball team? Genuinely. But to me, he has just absolutely maximized this squad. I know Jim Leland had a comment he made, maybe a month or 2 ago when his number was retired. At the end of a season, he looked in the mirror, and if he thought he got the most out of his team that year, then it was a successful season. If he felt like he didn't, then that was basically how he judged whether he did his job or not. And he always talked about the 06 team and how that was his best managing job he ever did because he felt like he maximized that team. I think that's what AJ Hinch has done with the Tigers. And I love his style. It's analytic. He treats everybody the same. I know the constant bitch would always be, oh, why is Kerry Carpenter not playing today? Versus a lefty or a righty. I always get confused on what the matchup is you want. But he always stuck to what his principles were and how he manages a squad. He would pinch hit for anybody. I don't care if it's Riley Green. I don't care who it is. Carpenter. If it's Andy Ibanez is sitting in the dugout, he would pinch hit him whenever he felt like the situation needed it. And how he's handled this bullpen, all the players have bought in. They're young. They're fun. They believe in this guy, as you talk about, Matt. Nobody has World Series experience, really, outside of Vierling and Maeda and AJ Hinch, who has won a World Series. It just seems like this team is frothing at the mouth at anything AJ Hinch says, and whatever he says, they're going to buy into it 100%. It's just been awesome to see him. You talk about Chris Fetter as well. Chris Fetter, I like to call it the Fetter-made bullpen, like the better-made chips. Better-made. I mean, Tyler Holton, he is the unsung hero of this squad. He does not get, because of Skubal, because of Chris Fetter, we always sing the praises of him. Tyler Holton is the man. I mean, he's had the best ERA in baseball the last 2 years. Just a perfect, can open a game, can close a game, can pitch in high leverage in those 7-8 innings. Just the man. Jason Foley, ground ball king, another great bullpen arm who's just been honestly money really since we pulled him up a couple years ago. Will Vest, I get a kick out of watching Will Vest pitch. He's not the most dynamic pitcher, but there's something about his confidence when he steps on the mound compared to just seeing him in everyday interviews and in the dugout. It's like a whole different person. And if he has a good outing, he always gives a nice little strut off the mound, which I can't wait to see what he'll do in postseason play. There's the list goes on and on for all these guys. I mean, I haven't even mentioned Triple Crown winner Tarik Skubal. Yeah, what a fun team. Enjoy this season. Enjoy whatever they do in the postseason, because even though they might be more talented and even better next year, there's something truly magical about what they're doing, and it's a true team. How do you not root for that outside of whether you're a Tigers fan or not? A true team. It's awesome to see.
It's the epitome of team. I mean, it was just incredible to watch their whole run. The Houston matchup for me and most fans, I think that's the one they want to see. The storylines, like you said, Matt. AJ going back home where he won a World Series, the whole Verlander thing. We're going to get a lot of that stuff probably overload. But I was pulling for him to go to Baltimore just selfishly because I was actually considering going to Baltimore and watch him play.
Do you think you would have actually, or just for the fun of it? Do you think you actually would have pulled the trigger on that?
Nah, it was very, very possible. Yeah. It may not have been Tuesday's game. It may not have been to pull it that quickly together, but Wednesday. So, but it's going to be a good matchup, and I got to give kudos to the Bally Sports Detroit people, including yourself, Jared, but the whole crew. What a great job of production. I had to do the high school game Friday night with Casey. So I had the DVR all set, and I came home and watched the last inning and then watched all the post-game celebrations. It was incredible and really well done by the whole crew. And we've talked about it before. I still hope to get him on this podcast now that baseball season is over for him. But Jason Benetti just has been an absolute tremendous addition to the Tigers organization.
He really has. Him getting his flowers this week has been probably as cool as the Tigers run, because he is one of the best in the business. And I don't know how much his schedule slows down because he's just as busy with college football. So, but yes, maybe at some point his schedule will open up a tad and he can pencil in 15 minutes for 3 Point Podcast. That'd be pretty cool. But no, he's the best in the business. And I mean, he stepped in at the right time. Yeah. And Andy Dirks up there in the booth is a lot of fun. Carlos Pena is fun too. So they really, they're probably I'll be curious what they do with that whole booth situation, going forward, if they keep a rotation. But Jason Benetti, I mean, he makes it's such a joy, like listening to the games that he calls. And then, Dickerson, obviously, if you listen to the radio calls, is also the best in the business. So the Tigers, if you have to watch them on TV or listen to the radio, you're going to hear a good call. I did just see that they announced the times. Okay. So obviously the series is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yep.
The Tigers Astros have the day games. So their first pitch is all 3 games is at like 2:32 in the afternoon. And I'm already seeing people kind of complaining about that because, you kind of want your marquee matchup to be those primetime games. And you got the hottest team in baseball, the Tigers. The ratings are going to be out of control with Detroit fans. And then the Astros, obviously, just probably the most experienced team in the major leagues. And you're sticking them at 2:30. It's kind of interesting on ABC too, because ESPN/ABC, they have the wild card series. So 2:30 on ABC, just kind of for a retired guy like Ted, no big deal.
Big deal. Right.
That's news to me. There's still so many things I'm new to this baseball thing that just make effing 0 sense. Makes 0 sense. What? Call me crazy. Why the hell is there even day games? Why?
Space them out.
Why? I get it, but it's like I don't know.
I mean, we'll think about
that night slate, 2-3 games all going at once. The wishing hour. That seems like baseball to me. I know day games are cool, and there are going to be a standalone game. I just disagree with that. I get it. I understand wanting to have these games spaced out, cover 8 straight hours of a day, but Skubal on the mound, AJ Hinch back in Houston. It's going to be it's going to start. Is it going to basically start the postseason, which is kind of cool in its own respect. But
first one, yep.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I'll watch. We'll all watch regardless.
It's just the ratings game, right? I mean, it's not New York Yankees. It's not the Los Angeles Dodgers. Detroit and Houston getting lack of respect. They're mostly Detroit, but Tigers don't care. They're going to go there and they're going to give it full effort, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be nothing but fun. I'll watch every moment of it.
Oh yeah, a couple things I just want to throw out. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, because the Tigers, they're at 2:30. Then the Royals in Baltimore are the 4:00 game, and then the 2 National League series are 5:30 first pitch, 8:00 first pitch. So they kind of space them out, 2 hours apart.
Right.
So they're giving the National League the two primetime slots, I guess.
So it's weird. So, it's weird to me that the two games that are going on basically at the same time is that 4 and 5:30. Wouldn't it make sense to make it like almost like 6 and 8? I don't know. I don't know shit. I don't know how TV ratings work, so I'll leave it to those guys.
Yeah, it's also the networking thing, because like the 4:00 games on ESPN2 and the late games are on ESPN, so they got to figure all that out. So that's always like Thursday night. I've been working Thursday nights. The ESPN college football game that's on Thursday nights. This past Thursday was Army absolutely trouncing. I don't even remember who the heck they played because they just ran all over them. But we have no game this Thursday because it's baseball postseason and it's going to be on ESPN. So we don't have a football game. So they got to figure all that programming stuff out. But it is kind of interesting. I mean, one of the National League series is in San Diego. So obviously on the West Coast, so you're not going to put them at 2:30. That'd be like a 11 o'clock.
That there's not a 10 o'clock game. I would almost thought they would, those West Coast matchups, maybe more so. But who gives? The Tigers are in postseason baseball. I'll watch them
either way
at midnight. I don't care.
That's right.
Either way, postseason baseball is happening. Tigers are in it.
A couple things I'm just going to throw out real quick. Just because, what a run it has been. And, next time we record, the season might already be wrapped up and maybe the Tigers lose 2 straight. So, Scott Harris, I'll be honest. I always understood his plan. I always got it. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. It's not about me. But his whole idea of, I remember this whole season, really up until they started really winning some ball games, everyone's saying, why didn't they go get another bat in the offseason? Why did they get this guy? Why didn't they get JD Martinez, this and that? To me, his plan of, we're just going to give all these at-bats to the young guys, and we're going to see entirely what we have. Why waste at-bats for a guy who's maybe a little bit better, but who's also 10 years older than some of these other young guys like Jace Young, Trey Sweeney, whoever that's coming up through our ranks. Obviously, Trey Sweeney we acquired in a trade. Right. I just think he deserves a big-time kudos because it took some balls to do what he did. That was the long-term play. It really seems like it worked. It seems like he got the right players in that clubhouse to create an awesome, environment for winning. I just think he deserves some big-time kudos. What do you guys think of Scott Harrison? I mean, are we all kind of looking back and saying, hey, he was kind of right all along with how to handle this? What do you think?
I'm a little more on the fence. I'll let me know after this offseason. If we go another offseason and basically don't sign any other veterans and just say, hey, let's roll with these kids, I'll be like, what are we doing? Because we've got like the lowest payroll in baseball, basically. Right. So here, these young kids, to your point, prove they can play. Now go sign some veteran players. So it's not just Tarek Skubal on the mound. I know there's other guys, but sign some other players. So we're not just relying on AJ Hinch's magic lineups every day to win us games. Then yes, I'm not disagreeing with you, but it's kind of like, all right, now let's build on this.
Yeah, and I think they should be able to. And I think what he has put in place, with the youngsters, I mean, we've said it, the youngest team in baseball, and they play hard, they play together. They're going to get better because if you look at that roster, it's been magical what AJ's done because the batting averages are nothing to write home about. They just had clutch hits when they needed it, clutch hits, clutch pitching. It's just been a full team effort, which baseball is one of the few sports that I guess it works because the stats don't mean everything,
Right. I mean, because we've seen Tigers playoff teams, with Miggy, Victor Martinez, JD Martinez, Prince Fielder, Ian Kinsler. I mean, Justin Upton. We've seen all these dudes, a lineup that's just like, how can we lose?
Right.
And then they get to the World Series and they can't hit the ball. So it's kind of like, okay, you can have Miggy, you can have Victor Martinez, you can have all these dudes, but you got to still be able to hit the ball in the right situations. Play a little small ball, move guys over, bunt to move guys over, sacrifice fly. You got to be able to do that kind of stuff. And AJ Hinch teams always do that. So hopefully, you got the ace in Tarek Skubal. Play some small ball. You got a strong bullpen.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. The Tigers could make a little run here. They really could make a little run.
I really do. I mean, we've talked about momentum over and over again in baseball, especially. It is important. It feels like this team is like playing baseball like they're back in your old Sandlot days, Ted. It's like that's how it feels. Yeah. And to me, that is a big time. You talk about those old Tigers teams, but man, they had Andy Dirks was talking about it a few days ago. The expectation was always World Series for them. So it really never felt like they played, baseball without a little bit of weight on their shoulders for how good they were. This team the world is their oyster. Just go make up this postseason run what you guys want to make of it. So I can't wait to see how that will play out. And the perfect indictment of who this team is, I think it comes down to one player, Matt Vierling, who's actually my favorite player. You talk about how there's no way to really describe what makes him so good, but you see plays like that slide where he makes a big time play and lets the crowd know it. Just a lot of hard plays. To me, Matt Vierling, I love his aesthetic. He's got the tape wrist. It's like he's a football player out there. And I think you talk about, obviously it's easy to look at a guy like Skubal, like, wow, he looks like he could be one hell of a football player. He's massive. But I think Matt Vierling would have been one hell of a football player if he went that route. I just see him as a quarterback, all-state in high school, a couple state championships. Maybe I think he's from Ohio he's from Missouri. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if an alternate timeline, this guy is like a tough Miller Moss, almost esque, like wears his heart on his sleeve, like quarterback. That's a random tangent, but that's what I think of when I think of him. Yeah. But what I'm looking forward to in this playoff series, I mean, what is Hinch? How is Hinch going to play the mind games that we've seen? Who's he going to use in his bullpen? Will he use Jackson Jobe out of the bullpen? Kaider Montero pitched out of the bullpen today. Casey Mize out of the bullpen last couple games. Jackson Jobe, would he start a game 2? I can't wait to see the chess pieces he plays and what that initial lineup is going to be game 1 versus Houston. What's their win or go home lineup going to look like for the Detroit Tigers, who has had more lineups than just about any team in baseball this year. So I just am fascinated to see how he's going to use his pieces.
You know, I wouldn't put it past him, but man, if he threw Job in there to start one of these games, that'd be like Mayo Smith putting Mickey Stanley at shortstop in '68. I mean, that's a ballsy move. You know, I know the kid's got talent, but man, whoo, that's a lot of pressure.
That would be ballsy.
Yeah,
that's
why
I had to look up and see if Matt Vierling, if he was like some state title winning quarterback or something.
Give me something.
Only played baseball his whole life.
Oh,
him and his brother, his dad was a former college football player at Kansas, so he comes from a very
there we go. You know, he had it in his blood.
Yep, he has the football genes, but him and his brother only baseball their whole lives. But no, you know, Hinch is going to draw something up. Starting the rookie Job, I don't know about a start, but I wouldn't be mad at it. I wouldn't be mad at it, but
no, absolutely not.
I would love seeing him in leverage, big time leverage moment. Let's see what this guy's got. Jose Altuve. I mean, it's going to be awesome to watch, man.
You know he's not going to back down. You know, he's going to go out there and throw smoke. So
yeah.
And one last thing I'll say about Vierling and why I guess the initial point why I even brought him up. He seems to be very important to this squad. I mean, you watch that celebration as soon as they clinched. Who got the biggest hug from AJ Hinch? It's Matt Vierling. Yeah. I think AJ Hinch knows the importance of that guy. And we talk about he's one of 2 players with postseason experience. They're going to lean on him heavily. To me, if the Tigers want to win, I think you need to expect a good showing from Matt Vierling.
Yeah.
So how loud was it, Ted, at Comerica?
Oh, it was loud. It was really loud. And, even the afternoon game, it was technically, I think, a sellout. Maybe not. There was 33,000 people there for the afternoon game, but man, it got really loud when they made their comeback. And then, we had the tale of both games because the night game I went to on Wednesday night, Parker Meadows starts it off with a shot, a home run to start the game. And that just got the crowd going all the way. Speaking of the Tiger fans in the crowd, before we get off this topic, how cool is it to see the team, as we already talked about, celebrating, and they bring in this super fan dude with a sign to come in the team picture? How cool is that?
That's cool.
That was awesome. That's what I mean about this team. Like, maybe we're more talented next year with a few new guys in there, but they're good dudes that you want to root for. That to me was like, what an awesome moment that really was.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm glad you brought that up because I would have forgotten about it. You're right. It was awesome.
No, that was really cool. And the picture of the team on the field with the scoreboard in the background that's just a classic photo. There is something, it's true with every sport, but we talked about it with the Michigan football team last year. I think a big part of them winning that title, not just talent, not just coaching, but they were a group. They were together. It was a bunch of guys who'd been at Michigan 3, 4, 5, 6 years even.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the same as far as that with the Tigers, but this seems like the clubhouse is close.
Tight.
It's not just a bunch of superstars that signed for a bunch of money and they're here to just try and win a World Series. Like, this is kind of a bunch of dudes who've maybe been written off a little bit, or like they're trying to prove themselves. They're Spencer Torkelson trying to prove that he is a big league player. Riley Green trying to prove that he is a legitimate all-star, all that kind of stuff. Like this clubhouse is together, which is big for baseball. So it's hard not to throw a little money down on the Tigers. I'm not going to, but
outside of, I'm all in on baseball, man. I can't believe it. One other story I want to throw out there, a little bit sadder one, but it seems right up your alley, Ted. In Oakland Coliseum. They played their last game there ever earlier this week. They got a win. What a bummer that really is. I mean, this isn't like the Charlotte Bobcats just, moved away. This is Oakland A's, numerous World Series, Hall of Famers. There's been a perfect game pitched in that Coliseum. I mean, in my opinion, the best jersey in all baseball, that was all whites, athletics jerseys. What's going through your guys' minds as you're seeing that? I mean, you guys have been alive a lot longer than I have. Not you necessarily, Matt, but Ted, you definitely have. You saw the A's in their heyday. Was that kind of bizarre seeing the last pitch be thrown there? I mean, home plate is already missing from the Coliseum.
Yeah.
So what did you think?
Well, it's totally bizarre, and I understand Oakland isn't the greatest area as far as fan support overall, but if you put a winning product, it's just like Detroit. When the Tigers are competitive, they're there supporting their team. And you're right. When I look back on it, the Oakland A's were the team back in the 70s. They had all the mustaches and Charlie O'Finley and Dick Williams, the manager. And I think they won 3 straight World Series and wearing those colorful uniforms. They were the first team to wear white shoes. It's definitely an end of an era, and I don't know what the answer is. I mean, it's just completely was botched by management. Seems like Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, wanted them out of there, wants them in Las Vegas, but the way they handled it, now what? They're going to play 2 years at a minor league stadium in Sacramento? What the hell? Why don't they go play at the minor league stadium in Las Vegas if that's where they're going to eventually be? Doesn't make any sense to me. And I think the team ownership just totally screwed the Oakland fans. No question about it.
Oh, it's 100% the type of situation where greed played out. They didn't think about the community. They didn't think about the fan base. They didn't think about all the history, all that kind of stuff. It was greed. They didn't want to be there. They could have figured something out, but they wanted to get out of Oakland for whatever the reasons are. They wanted out of Oakland. They wanted to be in Vegas. And it just doesn't make sense. Like, why are you going to Las Vegas? Do you really think Vegas is going to have more of a baseball fan base than Oakland? That it just seems really strange to think that Vegas all of a sudden is this huge like baseball, Major League Baseball.
Bring a lot of stuff. I mean, they had the Vegas Knights brought there recently. I think they will have good crowds, but it's not the same. That Oakland, I mean, look at like I was targeted with all the Oakland stuff as I started liking a few tweets as that final game was playing out. I mean, they're talking about this apparently this BART bridge, as it's called, like where guys are selling acid, guys are selling hot dogs, they're selling memorabilia for A's. Like those home games, and I don't remember who the reliever was, where he would come in for the A's and the crowd would just go absolutely nuts to like a Metallica song. I don't like Balfour, I think the guy's name was. You can't replace the heart that those fans had. I mean, you're seeing signs, guys like I was at first pitch here in 1968. Now I'm here for the last pitch in 2024. There's something majestic, and how can you not be romantic about baseball, as they say? Those final games played in stadiums. I mean, Ted, I know you have seats from Tiger Stadium. You probably regret not going to that final game there in 1999. I know Ty Jones, that's the guy who's played in the World Series, done all this and that, but one of the most things he's most proud of is getting that last out at Tiger Stadium.
Right.
So I was eating up all that content. It was cracking me up. People are plundering, taking home plate, taking seats, ripping them right out of the car. Like, believe me, if I was there and I'm an A's fan, I would have been plundering as well. Yeah. Anything I could have got my hands on, mustard, contraption, I would have taken it all. But just wanted to throw that out there. What an awesome moment that was. And last thing I'll say, if let's say something like this happened to a Detroit sports team and they moved to a different city, do you think you would still be a fan of that team if the Detroit Tigers became the, I don't know, New York Tigers?
Might as well put me in the ground. Might as well bury me right then.
No, it would be tough. I mean, especially some of those, the Tigers, the Lions. If the Lions move to Vegas, well, I guess there's the Raiders there now. But if the St. Louis Lions, if something like that, no, can't do it. It's not the Detroit Lions, and it's different too than when Tigers. I mean, that was obviously a big deal, but like Detroit didn't kind of like what you're saying. Detroit didn't lose the Tigers; they just got a new stadium.
Right.
So it's a very different thing. I mean, it's a shame.
And I'm not totally opposed to teams moving. Like for example, like the St. Louis Rams. Good riddance. I'm done with that franchise. I'm glad that they moved to LA. That's where I think they were originally.
Originally, they were there, yeah.
So there's some moves I don't mind, but this one, getting rid of a classic franchise like the Oakland A's or organization, whatever you call it in baseball, seems like a big time blunder.
There's definitely been some weird stuff in pro sports too. I mean, not only do teams move, but you got a team like the New Orleans Jazz, which that makes sense. The Jazz. The Utah Jazz. Why didn't they change the name?
Such a great name. It's such a great name. That's why.
It's a great name. It doesn't have anything to do with
Utah.
It
doesn't, but that's one of the best names in sports. You don't change it. I don't care where you're at.
And the goofiest part about it is they've got some different. It's obviously very different nowadays. They have a million jersey combinations, but like one of their big ones through the 90s, like when Karl Malone and kind of through some of the heyday of the Utah Jazz, it was like mountains. So it didn't even have anything to do with the Jazz. Now they do have a couple different unique combinations, but no. And then you have the weird stuff like the whole Baltimore Colts, the Ravens, and then the Browns go to Baltimore. And then, like you mentioned, the Charlotte Bobcats, they ended up going down to New Orleans, but now the Charlotte Hornets are back. So who gets the history of the team? Because technically the team that's down in New Orleans is Charlotte. It's kind of the same with the Browns right now. Like, do they, what history
Right.
It's out of whack. A little side note before we move on to talk a little football. We're talking about the Oakland A's. It's not like the first time in franchise history they moved. They started out in Philadelphia, then they moved to Kansas City, then they moved to Oakland. And then one other note, they're going to draw big crowds in Las Vegas. The difference is going to be when you go to a Tiger game, it's all Tiger fans, right?
Oh,
you go to Las Vegas, it's going to be visitors that are going to the
it's
game.
you in the stands on vacation. That's what it is.
Right. So it won't be the same.
Right. It's the same at SoFi Stadium where the Chargers play in LA. I mean, I was just looking. It was all today. We're recording Sunday that they played the Chiefs. It was all Chiefs fans. It's a home game in LA, and it's all Chiefs fans. So that's what it's going to be in Vegas.
Well, yeah, we're talking about the Chiefs and football. We'll talk a little football here on 3 Point Podcast to wrap this thing up right after this short pause. All right, guys. I didn't get much of a chance to really tune in deep into the Michigan game. I did record it and watched it earlier today, watched the entire game. I mean, it blows me away what happened in that game. And there are definitely some concerns. And the number one concern is the quarterback situation. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if you went back and watched the whole game. Or
I watched
Jared,
it all.
Yeah, how closely you watched it, Jared. I know you've been working some of the games and stuff, but for the first 2.5 quarters, and this isn't being a homer, this is trying to watch with a objective or subjective eye, whichever way is the correct way to say that. I'm not trying to be a homer, basically, is what I'm saying. For the first 2.5 quarters, Alex Orji and the offense was improved. He actually hit a few passes. It was a downpour in Ann Arbor. So at first I was like, they're never going to throw the ball. He actually hit a few passes for, like I said, the first 2.5 quarters. They were running the ball fine. Mullings obviously was doing his thing. Donovan Edwards actually had a couple good plays. He was hitting Colston Loveland. He hit a couple other passes here and there. And I was starting to think, okay, maybe they're starting to get a little rhythm. I mentioned on the podcast last week, why don't they have 3 or 4 bread and butter pass plays when it's a 3rd and 6, when it's a 2nd and 4, and you want to do a little play action or something like that, that you've just perfected in practice that Alex Orji can just hit. And he was hitting those. Defense was playing great. I mean, it looked like they were about to win this game 37-3, just all of a sudden Michigan fans are back on. We're winning the title again. And then all of a sudden he threw that interception in the 3rd quarter. And it was like immediately, it wasn't just like, like if JJ McCarthy or some of these other quarterbacks throw an interception, it's kind of like, cool, we got this. We're fine. Mistake. No big deal. When that interception happened in the 3rd quarter, you could tell Minnesota was like, we got him. The defense all of a sudden was on their heels. And then when Michigan got the ball back, you could tell it was like, we don't know what the hell to do because he just threw an interception. It took all the wind out of the sails for everything positive for those first 2.5 quarters. And it is, I mean, I think the defense will be fine. Will Johnson didn't play. A couple other guys didn't play on defense. I think the defense will be fine. I still don't like Wink Martindale as the defensive coordinator, but whatever. They got to figure something else out on offense. So they're going to Washington this Saturday.
As an underdog.
Yeah, as an underdog. Washington's not great, but right, they're going as an underdog. And we're going to see what Alex Orji can do. And if it's like that again, I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. Give Jack Tuttle a chance. Go back to Davis Warren. I don't know. It's almost like you got to roll with Orji the rest of the year.
Yeah. And you're talking about that turnover. You're right. It was a game-changing interception. We're lucky. My God, if that same scenario played out in a Michigan State game with the onside kick that basically was not offsides, getting called offsides. Oh my God, we would be talking about it for 20 minutes on this podcast if the tables were turned. So they got lucky. I still don't know whether this team is fool's gold or not. I mean, you look at these last 2 weeks. USC, perfect storm. No film on Orji. Home crowd just absolutely on fire. Pick 6. USC infamous for being marshmallow soft. Like, you almost had to think if they weren't going to win that ranked matchup, they're probably not going to win a ranked matchup all year. This next week, Minnesota start the game off well. They block a punt. It's downpouring, which is a Michigan advantage in any game they play this year. Still, just 2 weeks in a row where that second half they've come out flat. I don't know what to attribute that to. Is it the fact that you can't really make adjustments on offense because there is no adjustment to be made?
Right.
We are going to Mullings you to death, and if that works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Is it coaching? Is there adjustments that could be made that they're not? Is it in that locker room? What, I don't understand it. I don't get it. They're going to truly be tested. I don't think Washington's very good. It's shocking to me that they're an underdog. Michigan is. To me, that tells me Vegas hasn't totally bought in stock on Michigan. To me. This is their first road game in what has been a kind of a weird schedule where they started the first 5 games of the year at home. So they're finally going on the road. We'll see. It's been fun to watch. To me, I admit they just had a big-time block punt, but their special teams still has to be better. That second half, and really throughout their game, maybe it was the first half as well, Minnesota had 2 big-time punt returns that set up scoring drives. You cannot have that. If you're going to play this style, you cannot have it. You have to be dominant in special teams, which Michigan has been for all the entire Harbaugh era until this year. It just really seems like special teams are really taking a step back. And as for the orgy turnover, maybe I said this already, but if he's in practice this week, he's wearing a scarlet red A on his shoulder. You cannot turn it over. You cannot do it. I don't care what you do. Throw for 0 yards. You cannot throw interceptions. If you're going to if you're going to throw interceptions, we'll go back to Davis Warren, for God's sakes.
Right.
You cannot turn the ball over. Anything you do on top of that is gravy. Do not turn it over. That's all we need from you.
Right.
So I don't know. What do you guys think? If you had to put your life on the line this week, are you taking a Michigan dub on the road as an underdog, or do you think Washington gets it done? What do you guys think?
Well, first of all, I would never bet even money, let alone my life on it.
I know. That was a lesson learned by me last week. So what do you got?
But I would say that from what I've seen out of this Michigan team, and God bless them, they're 4-1 and 2-0 in the Big Ten, and won the Little Brown Jug. That's all important stuff. But from what I've seen of this team, they're in trouble. They could win, but I think Vegas is on top of it. Washington's not an easy place to play.
No, and they'll want to put. I mean, Michigan is still the defending champs, so Washington wants to beat the defending champs,
right?
And not going. I mean, technically, right now, Michigan's number 10 in the AP poll. If the playoff started right now, Michigan would be in the 12-team playoff, which is kind of wild to think about. But so Washington, they're going to play their game of the season right now. This could be a big one for Washington to win. And I think that I've tweeted it out a few times. I think I've said it on this podcast. I think people weren't talking enough, not just about the talent that left, all the dudes that went to the NFL that we don't have to go through the list, but those were some legitimate leaders on that team. Blake Corum, JJ McCarthy, Mike Barrett, Mike Sanders still on defense. I mean, these were dudes who had been through the weird COVID year, the 2020, 2021 seasons with Harbaugh, where Harbaugh was almost getting fired. They stuck with the program. They're there for 3-4 years. And they're, that goes a long way in college sports. We kind of talked about it with the Tigers, the clubhouse being together. In college football now, and guys are transferring all over the place. We got players transferring in the middle of the season now. When the locker room is together and you have leaders like a Mike Sanders still, like a JJ McCarthy, that goes a long way. And I don't know who that is on this team. So you talk about Jared at halftime, they're up whatever the score was at halftime, 24-3 or whatever it was.
24-3,
Yeah, 24-3. I bet they were in that locker room thinking they were about to coast to a win. They were probably starting to talk about what party they're going to go to that night. What are we going to get into this night? Where are you going after this game? Because I feel like that's the vibe you get watching this team. They think, yep, Khalil Mullings will just save us. Donovan Edwards will break a long run and he'll save us. We'll be all right. We'll get a win and we'll be on. And there's no like fight. The defense showed it against USC, but this week, I mean, they made PJ Fleck outcoached Sharon Moore like crazy. I mean, Sharon Moore, I'm going to give him a few years. I'm not saying like fire this whole staff or whatever. It's not that, but I saw someone tweet something that like, you can't, yes, we wanted to give Sharon Moore the job because he wanted to keep what Jim Harbaugh built. You wanted to keep that going, but it seems like he's trying to do what Jim Harbaugh was doing, but you're not Jim Harbaugh. It's kind of like, you got to be your own coach. Yes, keep some of the stuff going, maybe what you do in practice or, some of the other messages that Harbaugh kind of instilled. But it kind of seems like he's trying to do what Jim Harbaugh was doing. And it's like, you're not Jim Harbaugh, you got to be your own coach. And someone's got to step up and be the leader. Is that going to be Alex Orji? Because it doesn't seem like Donovan Edwards is necessarily like a vocal leader. So who's that going to be? And because like you said, Ted, the season could fall apart quickly.
Oh, it could.
To me, it comes down to the defensive line. We're seeing the formula with Kentucky, what Kentucky is doing. I mean, Deion Walker from Cass Tech literally might be the best defensive lineman in the country, going to be a stud in the NFL. They are leaning on that defensive line, and they are just creating chaos. And you can win games like that. I mean, we talk about Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham. They've really come alive these last 2 weeks. Josiah Stewart, I thought he's like the highest rated Pro Football Focus defensive lineman like in the country through the first 3-4 weeks or something like that. So they have the talent on the defensive line to win off of that.
Yeah.
Sharon Moore, I'm with you. He is kind of following the Harbaugh thing. It's hard for me until things go sideways. It's hard for me to really fault them. He's winning games without the forward pass. It's like, how do you listen, I think I maybe have an interesting perspective on this. So NCAA football, the video game, stick with me on this. It's a shame.
Here we go.
So I have to get creative with how to make it fun. So I've since they've introduced this Mullings offense, I have started to emulate this in online matches. I call it mulling people to death online. I run it every single play. I run it every single play with Michigan. And it's funny how I've been trying to get creative with how I can win these games. You know, 3rd and long, it's funny. I keep saying that, but these online players, I can hear them talking into the mic. I'm talking to these guys. They are just holding on to all game. When am I going to finally throw that ball? When am I going to finally throw it? And I never throw it. 3rd and long, I'm going halfback draw. 3rd and short, I'm going read option, quarterback keeper, bootleg with Alex Orji. I'm creative. I'm one hell of a play caller in this game. Screenplays. You know, usually what I do, once a game, I'll hit a play action pass for a deep touchdown. 2nd and short, when they least expect it, I'm moving the ball with ease on the ground. 2nd and short, touchdown, deep bomb. So I don't know what to do with that information. I guess maybe it just gives a new lens for me to watch the game through, like I'm a play caller, like I'm Sharon Moore. But it'll be fun to watch. I like this team. I get a kick out of this team. I enjoy watching them play. Who doesn't love a defensive line full of studs, a team with a running back who plays with a lot of heart? Let's just roll with it. Let's see what happens with this squad. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue that, and I agree with you on the defense for sure. I'm not too concerned at all with the defense, but listen, Jared, you've preached about this many times, and you were a quarterback. You got to have quarterback play. I mean, for example, that interception, it was a 50-50 ball that he threw up, but people aren't really talking much about the fact that Donovan Edwards was wide open on the wheel route on that. How did he not see him? You know,
that's if I'm Orji, you got that's like what I'm saying. In that video game, I know I'm screwed if that one time a game I pull out that deep bomb shot and I don't convert it. You have to hit those plays. And you're exactly right. That was a swing play. Should have went for a touchdown for Michigan. Instead, he misses his throw, interception. Now we got a ball game. You got to hit those big time throws. We don't need him to throw 20 completions. We need him to complete 10 passes, one of them for a big time game.
Yeah, look how good JJ was at that too. JJ played that exactly that way.
Yep, he would hit the big throws when you needed and to break games open, and that's what that would have been. If he hits Donovan Edwards, or if maybe even if it's a better throw to Loveland, score a touchdown. It's now 31-3,
different story.
The game's over.
Yep.
Instead, interception, they score, and it's like, oh, geez, here we go. Because that's what happened when you play that style of offense. What Jared runs on College Football 25.
Well, here's real quick.
If you get your backs up against the wall or you're losing, you can't win a game like that.
Here's the best part. I'll beat these people, and then I message them after we get off. I say, "You just got Mullings to death." I'm a psychopath on that game, but I get a kick out of playing people like that, man. I really do. Real quick, I just want to throw out a couple more things in college football. I know we're going a little bit long. So Michigan State, OSU, I don't think we have many thoughts on this. If you're a Michigan State fan and you're a Michigan State team, you know they're officially back when they can compete with Ohio State. It just seems like every year you think they're solid, OSU comes in and just bludgeons them, lights them up. They usually have a star wide receiver that puts his name on the map against Michigan State. If you're a Michigan State, you got to start playing in that ball game. That's when you know you're officially up here with the big boys.
So wait, what are you saying? They played with Ohio State, so
no,
they're back?
No, they didn't. That's
I was about to say, what game did you watch? If you're saying that,
right? No, that's what they're not back.
Okay.
I'm not saying they're going to beat Ohio State, but my God, start putting up a little bit of a fight in this goddamn game. Yeah. It's been like 3-4 years in a row that they've gotten blown out. And it's always like a big game. It's like, man, hey, let's see what Michigan State's all about. Just killed. A couple other things real quick. Colorado. I may have been wrong about these guys. I'm not going to lie. They're 4-1. The season really was at a turning point when they were 1-1, going to Colorado State as a 7-point favorite. The season could have went one of two ways at that moment. They won that game, then they have the miracle win last week. Then this week they kill UCF, a good UCF team. I watch their games every week, and I just got to say I might have been wrong about what they're building. They seem to have some magic with them this year. Travis Hunter's been healthy. They've been fun to watch. What do you guys think about the Colorado team?
It's tough to really get buy into them because I'm not saying I can't stand Deion Sanders or anything like that. We're not having that conversation, but that stuff does kind of wear thin on you. So I've been trying to not pay attention to Colorado, but they're starting to actually win games. So who knows? We'll see, but I'm not thinking they're about to make the playoff or anything.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge Neon Deion fan as a coach and what it's went down with the rest of the team. But I will say this, Hunter, he should be the Heisman leader right now from what I've seen. He's an incredible player.
What really, the Big 12 isn't stacked. I mean, Kansas State, Utah,
BYU. It's got some fun teams.
But they could definitely make a run, win the Big 12, and then find themselves in the playoff. Who knows?
Right.
Which would be wild. To me, what I appreciate about their games, why I watch it every week, it's like the TV show Last Chance U, especially the independent seasons. Every game that they played, you're like, how the hell is this happening? It's like out of a movie script. That's kind of what it feels like with Colorado every week, the last 2 years. Like every game is out of a movie script. One last thing real quick. I know this is kind of a deep cut, but I'm fascinated to see how this one will play out. So Navy and Army, both undefeated for the first time in almost 100 years.
Wow.
It could be a fun situation to see how it plays out. They're both in the American Conference. We know they play that last game of the year every year, but that could be a conference title game. So basically what could happen, they could play the conference championship game against each other, then play again a week later in the Army-Navy game as basically an exhibition game, which is what it is. It's not technically a conference game. The college football playoff has already been decided when that game takes place usually. So it's just going to be interesting to see how that plays out. If these two teams have to play each other 2 weeks in a row, one with all the marbles, and then the next week, oh, by the way, we're going to play this awesome game at Lincoln Financial Field for Army-Navy, our traditional game, the only standalone game. I just think that's going to be weird to see how that plays out. Any thoughts at all on that?
Because like I said, we did that game last Thursday, the Army game, and people were talking about that. It's a long shot, but they could be the group of 5 selection for the college football playoff if they run the table, which would be insane for a service academy school to make the college football playoff. But the one game would be for the conference title game, but the Army-Navy game is the game. So that's the one that they'd probably be taking more serious, but
it's bizarre, man.
They want to make the playoffs. So it's kind of crazy, but I'll tell you one thing. Michigan's coaching staff should watch Army's offense. And if they're rolling with Jared's college football mullingsing people and Alex Orji, they should run Army's offense. The wishbone, they only throw the ball 6 times a game, 8 times a game, but the quarterback throws when he needs to. That dude is tough as nails. And I just, when I watch Michigan's offense, they make it look so hard. The play, I'm just like, why do you not have just these little screen passes, the quarterback design runs, even if you have to run a triple option, they just make offense look so hard. Whereas you watch Army, and I get maybe, opponent, maybe they're not playing the opponents like Big Ten schedule or whatever, but it's like Army just runs that offense so well. The wishbone, they're just playing. It's just, it looks so clean.
And that's what they lost by starting Davis Warren to start the year. They lost the whole offseason of really catering this offense to Orji. Now they're figuring it out on the fly. Right. If they had the whole offseason to come up with a lot of few tricks up their sleeves, figure out really where Orji works best throwing the ball, again, that was the bummer of wasting, not only getting drubbed by Texas, but just wasting that whole offseason, man, on a Davis Warren offense that we all saw after game number 1. This ain't gonna work, man.
Right. And their offense too seems to be a little bit too predictable, for defenses. I mean, it's frustrating. So I agree all the way around. And I like the take on Army Navy. I hadn't even thought about that. That's very interesting to keep an eye on that as we go down the road. I got one final thing on college football. Alabama and Georgia on Saturday night. I didn't really get a chance to watch it because I was at a wedding, but I did as soon as I got in the car after the wedding. It was coming right down the stretch. You know, Alabama ended up winning 41-34 and got a late interception to close it out. But the kick I got out of it was listening on the radio to the Alabama announcer. I have no clue who the dude is. I didn't look it up, but it reminded me of our one-time former guest, Wes Blankenship, you know, doing his high school thing.
Right.
These Southern SEC school announcers, it's hilarious to listen to, man, with that Southern accent and just hearing their descriptions of the game. It was classic.
Oh, they don't. I mean, you think you get fired up if you're calling a Corona football game? I mean, these guys, it's on another level. And yeah, if you're listening to the home, that's one thing that's pretty cool that ESPN does. This is a little side tangent, but when the college football playoff comes around and during the national title game, or sometimes they'll do it during the SEC championship game, they'll use all their other networks and broadcast the game with the home radio call. And I've just always thought that's so cool. Like, you know, like there's the Manning cast for Monday Night Football. If you don't want to listen to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, gives you something else. If you're a diehard Alabama fan and you want to watch the game but listen to the radio call, that's a pretty cool alternate. Yeah. It's like when Jared watches the Cavs on NFHS, but then sinks in the castle so he can hear you guys call the game.
Oh, it's
no, awesome. that game was incredible.
Yeah.
And how about Ryan Williams? Holy shit. 17 years old. I mean, that's been said a zillion times.
Amazing.
Born in 2007. But that play he made, that spin move, I've never seen a move like that. That was insane. That's one of those plays where it makes Michigan's national championship last year that much more unbelievable. It's like, we don't get those guys. We don't get those guys in Ann Arbor. Those guys are made for SEC football and maybe Ohio State occasionally. But my God, wow. Just wow. Really nothing else to add.
It also made me, I texted some buddies when that game was like going haywire, and I was like, this makes me so much more happy that Michigan got their national title last year, because we are just not on that level right now. We had the team last year, beat Alabama, beat Washington and Michael Penix in the title game. We got our title, but man, this Texas, Georgia, Alabama, even Tennessee this year, and those teams are on another level right now.
And that's why I never and God, we can talk about Michigan forever, but that's why I never understood why Michigan almost tried to make this turn this year. You won that national title because you won in the trenches. That's something Michigan can build their program on. We're going to get the best defensive linemen. We're going to get the best offensive linemen. We're going to get the best tight ends. We're going to have a stud running back that runs hard. It's just like they lost their way for a month there, and now they're kind of back to it, and it's almost too late.
You know, we're talking about the powerhouse teams that at the top of the polls, and we'll save this for maybe another podcast, but I saw Saban kind of went off on this whole way college football is nowadays with the NIL, and it's like the Wild West. I mean, it's incredible. It's just how the hell do you control that? They've got to try to control it. I mean,
I don't know how.
I don't think we talked about that. UNLV quarterback says, "Hey, I don't have my bag, so I'm redshirting or I'm out of here."
Right.
What on earth? I mean, I never thought I'd ever see that day.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad look both ways. And then UNLV went out and won their game with their backup quarterback by like 40 points. So that doesn't help the other kid's case that much. No. But you know, it looks bad for everyone, because if the kid was promised whatever it ended up being, $200,000, $300,000, you know, and then the people didn't pay him, that's pretty terrible on whoever that is, whether it was a booster or a business or whatever. You know, that's just pretty shady to promise a kid money and then not pay him. But also the kid didn't get it in writing. So people said like it's kind of a life lesson. Don't just think that these people are going to pay you in good conscience. No, get that in writing, sign a contract. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's where it needs to go with these NIL things. There's got to be contracts. If people are going, you can't just like give them the money here and there or something. Sign a contract and say, you stay at this school 2 years, you will get your $500,000. You stay at the school 3 years, you're getting $800,000 or whatever it is. It's going to have to be contracts. It's basically going to become professional sports is what it's going to become.
Well, you said it 100%. And I made my career as a salesman. It's not an order till they sign on the dotted line. And it's the same thing. If you're expected to get money, you got to have a contract. You have to.
Here's what I think happened. I actually did a little bit of digging because this is a fascinating story. There's going to be more of them.
Oh, yeah.
What the hell happened here? So Sluka came from Holy Cross.
Right.
One of the big things that's kind of a red flag immediately on, I don't know who, on maybe I'm not going to believe this kid's story. So UNLV had a stud quarterback last year that transferred out to USC for NIL purposes. He's the backup there. Don't you think if UNLV had $100K laying around in NIL funds, they're probably going to allocate it to this guy who they already know is a stud in already within their building to keep him?
Right.
So Sluka comes in. I think essentially what happened, me reading between the lines, I think what happened here is Sluka realized, hey, I only got so many years to maximize my NIL money. I'm going to sit the rest of the year out because I'm not making anything now. Mm-hmm. Maybe somewhere along the lines came up with this story. I was promised 100K. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I think he maybe came up with that to make more sense why he was stepping away instead of basically just quitting on his team flat out because of NIL. I don't blame the guy for doing it. You got to make some money, and he will, regardless of what UNLV does now that they've gone to the backup quarterback. But
can I ask?
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you a question, though. I plead ignorant if I don't know the answer to this, but NIL, name, image, likeness, right? Now, isn't it supposed to be like, let's say a car dealer uses JJ McCarthy, and that's where they pay him, right, to use his image, his likeness. What is this? I didn't quite understand this UNLV thing. Who promised him the money?
I don't know if anybody ever did. Well, think about this. So when basically some UNLV donors got wind of this, like, hey, this guy just wants 100K to stay, like, we'll pay him.
Right.
Team said no. So that's like makes me think like there's a disconnect big time between him, the players in that locker room who have not shown it support for him since he's made this move. Clearly they're playing for this backup who arguably is maybe better than Sluka ever was. Nobody, and that's the thing. There's no there's no guardrails. There's no contracts. There's nothing. Who knows? There's new agents. There's more agents coming into the picture. This agent might not know how shit is done. Thought he got 100K. Just said, hey, UNLV's offering 100K. Let's go there. Maybe the agent. Maybe it fell through on the agent's end. It's all just so weird. I don't know if there is a way to fix it. People are going to bitch about it. I don't know how to fix it. Genuinely, I don't know how to fix it. I don't think there is a way.
And it's not only, like you said, a car dealership or, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, giving someone a bunch of money for the name, image, likeness. It's not just that. It can be a group of boosters, a group of donors just to get together, raise a ton of money, and basically put that in a pool to pay a bunch of players, basically like what Ohio State did this year. They're out there bragging that they had $20 million to give the players to come play for Ohio State. So it's also that.
Well, so you answered my question. That's going to be the death of college football. That is the death.
It's not great, but
it's going to be complete. It's going to be corrupt. It's going to be the mafia running it, man.
Well, here's what's fun is Dave Portnoy, Michigan man.
Yeah, $3 million for a quarterback. I saw that.
And he can just do that. He doesn't need Michigan's, support. He can just do that.
So you're okay. You're okay with it. It just means
there's no way to stop it. There's no way to ever. I think I don't know how you could stop it. It is the reality. It's better than nobody getting money.
Well, I didn't realize that was the case.
Than nobody getting money.
I did not realize that a bunch of boosters or whatever could just put a suitcase full of money and say, "Come play for our school." I thought that they were trying to avoid that.
Because that's where they could say we're using JJ McCarthy. We'll just keep using his name. We're using his name, image, likeness to represent Michigan. So we want him to come be Michigan's quarterback and represent the university. So here's $2 million to come do that. And then now you've got, a whole roster of dudes that are just coming for the money. It's a different game for sure. People aren't going to these schools and they haven't been going to get an education for a long time, but they're not going to get an education. They're not going even necessarily for the coach. Players used to go to a school because they're committing to a coach. Right. That's not even really happening anymore. Do you think, Ohio State, do you think a bunch of those players went to play for Ryan Day? No, they went because Ohio State was giving them the most money. I mean, maybe there's still some coaches, Nick Saban, when he was there, maybe Kirby Smart, some of these other coaches can get guys to come to play for them.
Right.
But no, I mean, clearly it's who's offering the most money. And
well, if they had a good organization and if they had good rules in place, maybe it would work. It's almost to the stage right now where it's another pro league. It's a pro college league, we'll call it, right?
Basically, yeah.
And it's basically, that's what we're down to. So if that's the case, the NFL, what they have salary caps that they have to deal with, maybe colleges need salary caps or something like that. There's got to be a change, because it's just going to be completely chaotic.
You don't know.
How do you what?
Like Dave Portnoy can make this kid a Barstool employee, basically, and it's not Michigan. There is no that. This is the thing that I don't think any of us took into account.
Right.
There's no way to put it's not like it's Michigan has like contracts and like, even if they did, guys would still come in and illegally pay these players, just like what happened back in the day when players weren't allowed to play.
Right.
There's no. I don't think there's a solution, man. I think we just roll with it. There's going to be weird stories like this. Some players are going to quit on their teams. They're going to be some guys are going to be all about the money. You just got to roll with it. And us as Michigan fans, I hope Michigan embraces Dave Portnoy. We need these guys to compete. We need them.
Well, the way it is now, I guess I agree with you, but I don't think that was the whole intent at the beginning. No. The whole intent was, they deserve to be paid money, but it's out of control. It's completely chaos.
Get spanked a few times, like Ohio State comes in and spanks us a few times.
Right.
Donors aren't going to care about how things should or shouldn't be. They're going to care about winning football games. So I don't know. I'm not as negative about it. I get it. It's weird. It's bad. It could be better. I just don't know if there's an easy way to fix it. So I think you just got to kind of let it roll.
Yeah. Well, I was starting to say, it should be pro college players, and don't even go to school. You're just going to college on a football degree. That's it.
Basically, yeah, they're basically going to have to almost make a whole separate school and just say, you're just going to the University of Michigan to play football. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, that's what it's coming down to. It's a facade. If you're calling them scholar athletes, it's just
especially
athletes. Scholar athletes. How you phrase that as like a high schooler? That's funny,
right? Football might be a tad different because you have to stay in school for a couple of years, but college basketball is the biggest one where you can still be a one and done.
Right.
I mean, you literally do not have to go to class if you know for sure you're going pro after 1 year.
Right.
Just show up for class in the fall, get to the winter, and then you're not going to the class the rest of the year.
Listen, Matt, how much of what you learned in college do you apply to your everyday job?
20%, maybe.
So what are we joking about? These kids are getting some magical, education. It's a joke, man. Let them make money. Right. Let them do with that money. This Sluka kid, we can shit on him, but him basically saying, I'm going to make $100K next year, because I decided to sit this year out. It's like, how can I honestly be actually mad about that?
Right.
Yeah. This is the time to make some dough.
It's his time to make some dough. And the big thing is, like, for the people who aren't going to be 10, 15, 20 year career, whether it's basketball, baseball, have football, have a long career, at some point, you are going to go back and get your degree, and you can do that. Go play football until you're 25 and then go back to school and get your degree. The shame of it is you can get your education for free right now. Like you can get a full ride from Michigan State, from Michigan or whatever, get that free degree, go play football. I mean, whatever, but
yeah,
it's a mess for sure. And it makes when the NCAA tries to get Harbaugh for buying a burger for a recruit. Exactly. And, some of these old things, it makes that look so stupid.
What is the deal with that? Again, the NCAA comes in with these allegations and we don't hear anything about it. Again, wait till Michigan wins a few ball games, then those will come back.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll delve into that topic again down the road, but it's interesting stuff what's going on in college football for sure. Guys, I think we've got enough in the can for a podcast. I want to thank the people at Memorial Healthcare's Wellness Center, the orthopedic walk-in clinic, now open Monday through Fridays, 8 to noon. No appointment needed. Just head on in if you have any injuries. Details at memorialhealthcare.org. Also, want to thank our partners, ALS of Michigan, AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori Shook & Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, and the Shiawassee County Fair. Also want to say thanks to Teddy Rydquist of the Argus Press for joining us, giving us his perspective on what's happening in the Mid-Michigan area in sports. And don't forget the Z92.5 Game of the Week this coming Friday. It'll be Brandon at Owasso. I'll be filling in for Casey, so I'll have to oil up the vocal cords for a little play-by-play. It's been a while since I've done that. So Brandon at Owasso Friday night. Nice. I do enjoy going to Owasso though, man. Wilman Field's just it's
can't
awesome.
Beat it. Can't
Great
beat
atmosphere.
it. 3-2 versus 3-2, right? So that's a big game. Big game.
It'll be a good matchup. All right, that'll do it. Peace and love, everybody. Be kind. Make sure you register to vote. And thanks for listening.